Part 2 of every coaster manufacturer's most ambitious roller coaster ever. If you missed part 1, I'll link it in the end screen. Let's get right into part 2. We have a couple of interesting manufacturers to start off part 2. Like PAX. I think PAX's most ambitious coaster is Cobra at Coneyland for one main reason: the scorpion tail. This is an inversion unlike any other in the world, and it hangs riders upside down for an unbelievable amount of time. If you like hang time, then this could easily be one of your favorite coaster moments in the entire world. A one-of-a-kind maneuver that is certainly noteworthy for this list. I had a tough time deciding which coaster from Pinfari should make the list. And unless there's one I'm missing, which is possible, I'm just going to go with their Galaxy/Zyklon models as a whole. These coasters really are not that ambitious at all, but for what it's worth, these are typically the best coasters at small parks or fairs. Without these Pinfari coasters, it's very possible that at a lot of fairs and small parks, there wouldn't even be a roller coaster. Credit where credit is due, but at the end of the day, not super ambitious. Premier Rides has made a living off launch coasters, especially their Skyrocket 2 model. SeaWorld especially really liked this model because it fits a launch coaster with an inversion into a very small space. But even though these take up almost no footprint and they are quite fun, I don't think that's Premier Rides' most ambitious coaster. For that, you have to go to a clone at two different Six Flags parks, over Texas and St. Louis, Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast. I really can't wait to get on this coaster because one of the interesting things about it is that it has an inverted top hat, which is not something you see every day, along with having a backwards launch. On top of that, if you sit in the back of the train, you will reach hypercoaster heights with that gigantic spike. Really a cool coaster, and a good one for St. Louis and over Texas to have in their lineups. PTC is another one that I was struggling with. If anyone has an idea other than Phoenix at Knoebels, I'd love to hear about it in the comment section below, because Phoenix is often regarded as one of the world's best wooden roller coasters, but it's even not that ambitious. I know PTC has built a lot of wooden roller coasters in their day that were around this size, but I just couldn't find one that really stood out as being ambitious. As I said, if you have a better idea, let me know. And finally, we come to the company that has been known to many as the best roller coaster manufacturer out there. Of course, we're talking about Rocky Mountain Construction. You can make a justifiable argument that RMC's most ambitious coaster is New Texas Giant because they're trying out that new technology, or their single rail coasters too. Having coasters as extreme as those single rail coasters are on just one rail was ambitious for sure, but I'm going to go with one coaster in particular, Lightning Rod at Dollywood. In fact, given this ride's history of not being open, maybe a little too ambitious. There are a plethora of things to talk about here. Firstly, a launched lift hill on a wooden coaster? Who would have thought? There's no wonder that this ride had technical issues because man oh man, a launched lift hill on a wood coaster, just crazy. And then of course you can't forget about the world-renowned quadruple down at the end of the ride. To add on to all that, this coaster uses so much terrain. It is definitely a terrain coaster. The engineering to just make this ride go through its course is amazing, never mind the launch lift hill and all those things. You can make a case for a couple different RMCs for this list, but for me, it's Lightning Rod all the way. On to RCCA, who had a small collection of coasters before going bankrupt, but man, they went big or went home. And in the case of the coaster for this video, Son of Beast, they kinda went home. A ride plagued with technical issues among other things, but okay, let's look at the ambitious parts. It was a hyper wooden coaster, and beyond that, it featured a vertical loop. Just an insane ride to even try to attempt, and well, maybe there's a reason why no one's attempted it since. Credit where credit is due in this one, because this is one of the most ambitious roller coasters ever built. And it wasn't a huge successful company to build it, it was RCCA. Just weird. For S&S, it's Dodonpa all the way, and there's not even a contest. In my opinion anyways. Dodonpa's launch is crazy, 112 miles an hour in 1.6 seconds. If that doesn't make you scream, then I don't know what will. This coaster has been standing but not operating though for over a year due to, issues, so hopefully they can resolve those, but if not, either way, this is still an extremely ambitious coaster by SNS. SBF Visa doesn't really have much for this list. Their figure 8 spinning coaster has become insanely popular, but I'm going to go with their hamster wheel coasters. This vehicle change really changes the experience because instead of a kid's spinning coaster, you now flip upside down many times. I haven't personally experienced one of these, but I'm sure it's a very interesting experience. And this is the most ambitious coaster you're going to find from SBF Visa. For Schwarzkopf, and I know I butchered that name, I'm going to go with Chimera, or soon to be American Dryer Looping at Indiana Beach. You could say Revolution at Magic Mountain was their most ambitious because it had a vertical loop, but I think Chimera stands out as just being an insane ride. It has 3 vertical loops, and if I've heard anything about the company, it's that the vertical loops on their coasters are very intense. Schwarzkopf was the company to go to for looping coasters, and a lot of the rides still stand up very well to this day. In their heyday, they were a company that were always innovating and making great looping coasters. Skyline Attractions has done a lot of work with GCI, but as far as their coasters go, I guess Harley Quinn Crazy Coaster at Discovery Kingdom is their most ambitious. Sure, it only operated for a couple years and had lots, and I mean lots of downtime, but it was the first of their flat ride coasters. From what I've heard, these haven't been very good so far, but if they can get this design right, and make them enjoyable rides, then we will look back at Harley Quinn as the original coaster from that category. Honestly, it's not my favorite concept in the world, but I think it has potential, and Harley Quinn was the original, making it the most ambitious in my book. Most people in the States don't like Togo for what they've done in the US, but they have some good stuff, especially in Japan, but I think their most ambitious coaster is from the States. Cobra at Kings Island. Why is this the most ambitious? Well, this was the first ever stand-up coaster. Until the B&M Surf Coaster, the stand-up coaster design has been pretty dead for a long time. But for a while, it was a pretty popular coaster, and Togo was the one to start it all. Not that Togo was doing anything too crazy layout-wise with Cobra, but the whole stand-up scenario was a unique one, and that's why I think it's the most ambitious coaster that they've ever done. Alright, time to talk Vekoma, a company that for a long time was known for their boomerangs and SLCs, along with all the coasters that they built with Disney. And while I've had some really fantastic looking coasters in Europe recently, I'm going back to the early 2000s for Stealth. At then Paramount's Great America, this was the first ever flying coaster. And while Vekoma themselves only built 3 Flying Dutchman coasters, this opened up the realm for every other company to build flying coasters, with B&M doing it most successfully. I'm sure the flying coaster would come around at some point, but Stealth was the first flyer, which to me puts it on this list. And you can still ride this coaster to this day at Carowinds. It should be noted that Gravity Max is also an honorable mention for Vekoma for the tilt coaster concept. But with the tilt coaster, they were only changing one part of the experience. With a flying coaster, they were changing everything. Which is why the flying coaster is more ambitious in my book. Wiegand does mountain coasters, but for me, there really isn't one that stands out as being ultra ambitious. A lot of these mountain coasters are very similar to one another. On a side point, these coasters also tend to be extremely profitable for the ski resort or whatever complex it is, because it feels like these places charge 2 toes, an arm, a leg, and 3 kidneys to get in. Wait, how many kidneys do you have? Point is, when your company only makes one roller coaster, it's kinda hard to pick out one in particular. Zamperla doesn't really have much in the form of coasters, but they have a lot of flat rides. However, we're focusing on roller coasters for this video, so I'm going to go with Rollin' Thunder. You can find this attraction in Alabama, and it's certainly unique for Zamperla standards. Vertical lift, vertical drop, couple of airtime moments, some upside down maneuvers, and one of the company's most thrilling rides to date. In most cases, people correlate Zier with family coasters. But I'm here to tell you, they've made a unique thrill ride too. It's Wicked at Lagoon. The most ambitious thing about this coaster is that it has a launch up a top hat, which is just crazy to me. Whoever thought of that idea is either insane, a genius, or both. There's also an inversion and some other elements mixed in as well to this roller coaster. So it isn't a one-trick pony, and Zier of all companies is the one to make an element like that? Interesting. I can't wait to get the experience of being launched vertically before getting great airtime over a top hat. That must be awesome. But anyways, there you have it. Every manufacturer's most ambitious coaster ever. As I said, if you missed part 1, I'll link it in the end screen. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.